Hi, I'm Ray. Welcome to my podcast and yet another episode. Did you listen to the one I did about the 1950s and 60s, what it was like then, and living in the 21st century now? Several people have got back to me and said, how do you cope with the traffic on the roads these days? Going back then, obviously, there were hardly any cars. Parking wasn't a problem. How on earth do you cope with it all these days? How do I cope? I mean, these days people park on the pavement. You didn't park your car on the pavement in my day. Wheelchairs can't get by. Mothers with pushchairs and prams, they have to go round the cars into the road. I thought pavements were for people, for pedestrian, not cars. Bicycles cycle on pavements. In fact, I nearly got knocked over last year. I was walking on the pavement. I wanted to cross the road, so I just sort of swung round to the right, and this bicycle was flying up behind me. He fell off his bike. He crashed into the side of a car, fell off, and I said, "What are you doing on the pavement?" He said, "Well, bikes are allowed on the pavement." He was all right. "Bikes are allowed on the pavement," he said. Quite adamant he was. Well, they're not, are they? I don't know. I might be wrong. Because they don't have lights on at night. I tweet the police. I go on Twitter and tweet our local police, and I say, "Are bicycles supposed to have lights on at night?" And they come back to me. They always answer. They're very good. And they say, "Yes, they are. They should have lights on." And I say, "Well, lots of them don't." And they just say, "Yeah, we know." I don't know. I suppose there aren't enough police out there, are there? That's the trouble. And I've said, are bicycles allowed on the pavement? I'm waiting to hear back from that one. I'm sure they're not allowed to cycle on the pavement. I tweeted them last night asking them that one. I fell off my bike once. What was I, 15, something like that? I was cycling along, back in the 60s this was. And there's this girl cycling towards me, other side of the road, in a miniskirt. They all had miniskirts then. And she's cycling towards me. And of course I'm 15 years old, so you look at any age, don't you? I'm looking at this girl, and I didn't realise I was sort of veering towards the curb. And I'm looking and looking and looking, and suddenly, crash, I went to the curb, and over the top of the bike, head first into a tree. She came over. She said, "Are you all right?" I looked up. She was standing over me. I looked up and thought, good grief. What am I looking at? I won't go into that. I said, "Yeah, I'm fine, thank you." I should have made out I wasn't. Then she'd have stood there a bit longer. But cars, I don't know. That's a difficult one. They're not allowed on the pavement, I'm sure. I think in London there are designated there's sort of lines on the pavements, aren't they, where you can park your car half on it? I don't know. I haven't been to London for a long time. But one thing that I know is wrong, and that's parking within 10 metres of a road junction. There we are. That's the highway code for you. You're not allowed to park within 10 metres of a junction or opposite the junction. 10 metres, something like that anyway. And people park right on the corner. I mean, they're effectively parking in two roads, aren't they? If you've got a 90-degree sort of junction, if they park on the corner at 45 degrees, they're in both roads. Well, where did I leave my car? Oh, that's right. I left it in Smith Avenue and Johnson Lane. I parked it in both roads. Of course, that makes it extremely difficult for people trying to turn in or out of the junction, the road. You can't see. You can't get round. In fact, many times I wanted to go down a side road. I can't. I've had to go on and go down the next road, then come back up the side road. Anyway, there we are. How do I cope? I don't know. That was a good question. How do we cope with these things? Driving used to be enjoyable. I loved it in the early days, but now, what with cars they're not parked, are they? They're abandoned. I think that's the way to put it. Abandoned. Instead of car parks, they ought to have notices. You abandon your car here. Dump your car here. Rather than car parks. Car parks are dreadful. Up at our local supermarket the other day, this woman parked it. It said mother and child, or parents and child, whatever it says. I get annoyed about that. I said to her, "You haven't got a child." She parked her car there. She was going off into the shop. She said, "Yes, I have." I said, "Well, where? There's no child. This is for mother and child." She said, "My child's at home," and walked off. I thought, okay, fair enough. I don't know. Then people park in two spaces, don't they? You've got your lines where you can park your car between the two white lines, or people sort of park at an angle or in two spaces at once. I mean, the whole thing is a disaster. Most car parks, actually, at supermarkets are very good. There's plenty of room. Of course, no one wants to walk more than 2 yards. That's the trouble. They all park as near as they can. Some people park in the drop-off or pick-up point. Yeah, which is for dropping off and picking up, as the sort of name implies. They'll park there, and they'll park there for half an hour while they're in the shop, or longer. I don't understand. If everyone kept to the rules, it would all work. All the traffic would flow. Everything would be, I don't know, it would be heaven, wouldn't it, if we all kept to the rules? A friend of mine the other day, he said, these speed cameras are a damn nuisance. I said, well, why is that? He said, well, they're dangerous. I said, dangerous? How can they be dangerous? What do you mean? He said, well, people have to slam on their brakes when they come up to a speed camera. He said, that's dangerous. So I said, why are you slamming on your brakes when you come up? He said, well, you're in a 30 limit, you get the camera. He said, you can't do over 30 past the camera, you get done. So I said, well, why are you doing over 30 in the first place? Why have you got to slam on your brakes? Oh, well, everyone does 40, don't they? So that's what I'm saying, isn't it? That's my point. If we all stuck to the rules, there wouldn't be all these problems. So, yes, that probably is dangerous. You're going along at 40, see a camera, slam on your brakes, bloke behind you goes into the back of you. Of course, that's his fault for being too close, which they always are. I hate that. What's it called? Tailgating or something, isn't it? Something like that. I hate that. What I'll do if I'm out in a country lane or wherever, and I've got someone like right up my back bumper, the next lay-by that comes along, I just pull into there and let them go. I can't be bothered with all that. There was a chap a few years back, I was just going along this country lane, double white lines in the middle of the road. That means no overtaking, whichever side of the road you're on, no overtaking. This car came flying up behind me. It was 60 limit. He came flying up behind me. I was doing 60, as if I'm in the way, dangerously close. He went flying past me, blasting his horn. I couldn't believe it, the way he did that. Anyway, I just carried on at 60. Round the next bend, it was quite funny. He was all right. His car was on its side in a ditch on the other side of the road, the right-hand side. It was in a ditch. He'd lost control round this bend, and the car had slid off the road and he's standing there by his car in the ditch. I just waved as I went past, just waved. He didn't look very happy. Why do people indicate left at roundabouts? I mean, this is the UK now. We drive on the left, as you probably know. Why do people, they come up to a roundabout, they indicate left when they're going straight on? This is on a roundabout where there is no left turn. There's either straight on or turn right. But they indicate left, which is very confusing. I don't know why people do it. A lot of people do that. I've seen them many, many times. Come up to a roundabout, indicating left, where there is no left turn, and they go straight on. I had a chap the other day. He was coming around a roundabout. He came onto the roundabout. I was waiting to get onto it. And he was indicating left, so I thought he was going to go down the road I was coming out of. I began to pull out, and he blasted me. He was going straight on. Well, he was indicating left. Always expect the unexpected. I think you're pretty safe if you do that on the roads. Always expect the unexpected. And if someone's indicating left, they're probably turning right. I had one follow me the other day. He indicated left for 3 miles along this road. Can't you hear the thing going tick, 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 tick? What's the matter with the man? Is he deaf? Perhaps he is, I don't know. In which case, can't you see the light flashing on the dashboard? It's dangerous. Come up to a junction and you're indicating left, someone's going to pull out. Always expect the unexpected. Of course, most people don't bother to indicate at all. I've watched many, they just don't indicate. It seems that they think the driver behind's probably psychic. Oh, I know where he's going. I'm psychic. That's okay. I was following a woman in my car the other day, a few weeks back now, and she stopped in the middle of the road. Just stopped. Slowed down, stopped. Not an emergency stop, just slowed down and stopped. And I'm trying to look past her car, thinking, what's in the way? What's the hold up? Couldn't see anything. A whole pile of cars behind me. We all come to a stop behind this woman. And I couldn't see. I thought she might have broken down. I was going to get out and say, can I help? And then this schoolboy on the pavement in his school uniform has got his bags. He walked across to her car, opened the back door, put his bags on the back seat, closed that, got into the front seat, put his seatbelt on, and she drove off. She was picking him up from outside the school, oblivious to any other cars on the road. Absolutely incredible. There's a whole queue of cars behind me, all building. I couldn't get past her. Absolutely incredible. I don't think that they use their rear mirrors. They don't know what they're for. Most drivers don't know what the rear mirror's for. Talking of schools, no one walks to school these days. Everyone has to have a lift. There are the blonde, yummy mummies in their Chelsea tractors, these 4x4 big things, and they all park. They can't walk anywhere. The kids can't walk. They've got to be dropped right outside the school gate, even though you're not allowed to park on the zigzag lines there, the white zigzags. They will stop there and let their little precious out because he can't walk more than, 2 yards. That would be a lot. Don't get me wrong. I do like seeing some of those blonde yummy mummies. Good grief. I don't look. Obviously I don't look, but I have noticed some of them are lovely. Well, most of them are lovely. They're dressed nicely. They've done their makeup. They look really nice. Yummy mummies outside the school gates in their big cars. So I've heard. I wouldn't look, obviously. Of course, in my day, the mothers had kind of long grey overcoats, and they wear a headscarf and no makeup. Not that they went to the school, of course, but everyone looked old then. Do you sort of think that's true? They all looked older. I've seen photographs of my mother when she was, 20, and she looked kind of 35, 40. They did then, didn't they? They looked older. But the yummy mummies now, well, I saw one the other day. Hang on, I've digressed. So let's move on. When I was a boy, here we go, you're saying, here we go, when I was a boy. No, it's true, when I was a boy, I used to walk to school. It was a mile there and a mile back. And I remember my grandparents saying, we walked 5 miles there and 5 miles back every day. Winter, summer, pouring rain, ice, snow. Well, I did, not 5 miles, I walked a mile. But these days they won't walk 2 feet, let alone a mile. And of course it clogs up the roads, all these cars every morning and every afternoon. There's cars, it's dangerous. You've got parking, illegal parking everywhere. They park on pavements, corners. There was one I saw the other day, actually parked, not on the pavement, but on the corner of this junction in the road. So you couldn't get round there. No one could drive round there. I suppose whoever it was thought that they're only going to be a few minutes. But that's not the point. It doesn't matter if you're going to be a few seconds. You can't dump your car in the middle of the road like that. I used to have a bicycle. All kids had a bicycle when I went to school. So we'd either cycle. If the weather's, snow and ice, you'd put your gear on, all your scarf and your balaclava and your gloves and all your gear, and you walk, your Wellingtons. You'd trudge along through the snow, get to school. Then in the afternoon, you'd trudge home again. Of course, way back then, people didn't have perhaps 3 or 4 cars. They had a family car that the husband would go off to work in, and most women couldn't drive. Whereas these days, the husband's got a car, the wife's got a car, and of course, as the children get older, they get to driving age, they've got a car. So you end up with, instead of a family car, you've got 4 cars to one family, and you imagine a street of, say, 30 houses. There's 1 car per house, 30. Mind you, then, not every house had a car, but we'll say they did, 30 cars. Double that because the wife's got a car, there's 60 cars. Of course, then the kids, couple of kids per house, they both have a car. There's 120 cars. So 120 cars all in one street. Not everyone has 2 kids and they don't all have the cars, but you see what I'm saying? Someone said the other day that in Japan, there's no parking on the roads. The roads are for driving, not for parking. Now that sounds like quite a good idea. I don't know where all the cars park. I suppose they must have designated parking places because not every house, if you live in a flat, or if some houses don't have off-road parking, so people have to park in the street. But imagine if there were no cars on the roads. The argument against that is, it's traffic calming. People have said all the parked cars everywhere calms the traffic. People can't go too fast because of all the cars littering the streets. That's probably true in most cases, but there are people that still go fast, and of course it's doubly dangerous at that speed because you've got people coming out between the parked cars. To be honest, there is no answer to this. I was listening, was it some motor manufacturer the other day? Well, they're producing something like 1 million cars or whatever it was a year. That's just one motor manufacturer. How many millions new cars a year are coming onto the streets? Okay, cars are going off every year, they're getting dumped or whatever, but how many new ones are coming onto the roads every year? All the children growing up, people are living longer, they're driving to a later age. It's just incredible. I don't know what's going to happen. There is no answer. Basically, there is no answer. You can't start saying, restrict families to say 1 or 2 cars per family, because then, that's not fair. You can't say to your kids, you're 20 years old, you're 25, 25 years, 30 years old, still living at home, you can't have a car, because that's just not going to work out, is it? So basically there is no answer. Someone one day will have to do something, because all the roads in the country will it'll be gridlock. Everything will grind to a halt, and that will be the end of that. These speed humps are supposed to be for traffic calming, aren't they? But all they do is wreck your suspension. I don't know, these speed humps, they do work, I suppose, because you've got to slow down, but that can be dangerous because not everyone slows down. You get someone in a firm's van, it's not their van, they don't care. They go flying over these speed humps. Of course, I'm going along, I slow down for the humps because I don't want to have to pay for my wrecked suspension. And you've got a van come flying up behind you. Then he overtakes, it's all dangerous, and he's whizzing over these speed humps, taking off over the damn things. Potholes, they do say that they're leaving a lot of the potholes in the roads because that calms the traffic. Potholes are very dangerous. I don't think that's true because they're very dangerous, especially if a bike, say a chap on his bike goes in front wheel in the pothole, he's just going to go over the top of the bike and do all sorts of damage to himself, let alone the bike. Of course, suspension, the steering on your car, you get one of your front wheels in a deep pothole and it's just going to wreck the suspension and or the steering. So I don't know, didn't have potholes in the old days. I don't remember potholes. Had a lot of insects in the old days. You know, you drive at night, you see millions of insects in the headlights, wouldn't you? And the next day, all over the screen and the headlights, you've got to clean them all off, all these dead insects. Whereas these days, you drive up a country lane, anywhere out in the country, you might see the odd moth or something, but there aren't these sort of swarms of insects like there used to be. They've all gone. I don't know where they've gone. Pesticides, stuff like that. All their habitats have gone, and I don't know, it's such a shame. A friend of mine was done for speeding once. It's along the seafront road. It's 30 miles an hour along there, and he was doing 50. And I said, well, I'm not surprised you got caught. 50 miles an hour and a 30 limit. He said, yeah, but this was 2 o'clock in the morning. He said, there's no traffic about. And I said, oh, I didn't realise the speed limit changed at night. And he said, well, it doesn't. So I said, well, in that case, why were you doing 50? Just going back to insects for a minute, I don't know whether you've noticed, but all the curbs, the roundabouts, the gutters, the grass verges of roads, all covered in wild flowers now. The council are leaving it all. Even the pavements, the cracks, all weeds are growing and things, but the wild flowers are lovely. And a lot of people, I've been reading on Twitter, a lot of people are saying, oh, this is marvellous. We don't want all this weed killer squirted everywhere. I think there are 2 reasons. What was it? The councils can't afford to do it anymore. I think that's the main reason. But the other reason is this is a great place for insects. As I've been saying, you know, the bees and other insects that like all these flowers. I was driving the other day along through the town, well, not the town, outskirts of the town, and there's wild flowers along the edges, all in the gutter, either side of the road, all these wild flowers. Absolutely lovely to see. Talking of the gutter, what are all these white painted lines everywhere? Someone's been going mad. It's almost like graffiti all over the roads. You get a line, a white line about, 2 feet out from the gutter, then that's all filled with diagonal lines, like a sort of crosshatch thing. Then you get more lines in the middle of the road, and honestly, some junctions that you come up to, I've noticed that there are so many, it's distracting. You look in here, you look at it, what's that mean? You go in that bit, not that bit. What's this line here? There's an arrow there. I don't know. There are so many white lines. They were saying a few years ago, in fact, that there are too many road signs. And I agree. You get to certain places, there are so many road signs. It really is distracting, or can be. What I tend to do is just stick to the speed limit and carry along the road, you know, rather than try and read all these different signs. There are far too many road signs. Again, going back to the old days, you didn't have all this. It might come up to a junction and it would just say halt. That's it, halt. So you stop at the junction. It just say 30 miles an hour. There was a bollard perhaps in the middle of the road with an arrow bit pointing left. You've got to keep to the left of that. And that was about it. There weren't all these hundreds of road signs and all this graffiti all over the roads. Absolutely incredible. Of course, maybe that is why some people drive far too slowly. Have you noticed that? I was going along just the other day, 40 miles an hour. The traffic in front has slowed down. There's, a dozen cars in front of me. We're all doing 25 in a 40 limit. I'm wondering what's going on. Quite a long road. This went on and on and on. I thought someone might be turning off, but no. It was a car right up the front, pootling along at 25 miles an hour. I don't know why, but I think that's illegal, isn't it? You've got to sort of progress with the traffic. I'm pretty sure it's illegal to go too slowly, and people have been done for it. Apart from speeding, you get done for going too slowly as well, which is good because you can't have people doing 25. That's dangerous. Then people are trying to overtake, blah, blah, blah. There's a bit of dual carriageway near my hometown. You're going along in a 30 limit and suddenly it becomes dual carriageway. And there's no change of speed limit. There's no signs, right? So it is still 30. And the amount of people that go along that bit, I've tweeted the police about that. And I have said, they know where I mean. They know the bit of road. And I have said, I'm going along at 30. Everyone goes flying past me. I might as well go at 40 or 50 as well. And they said, well, if you do, you'll get done for speeding. No one else does. There's never any cops that talking of that. Talking of never any cops around when you want them. I was coming back at 1 o'clock in the morning from Brighton through Shoreham on the coast road. Now it's a 30 mile an hour road all the way along. I was coming back with my wife. We'd been out somewhere. We're sort of pottering along at 30, which was great. And this chap went flying past us. Whoa, what was that? And I said to my wife, the bloke's a nutter. Shame there's never any cops around when you want them. Suddenly, nee-naw. Well, not nee-naw, they don't do that anymore, do they? This cop car went flying past us, pulled the bloke over. And I just, as I went past, I drove past, still tootling along at 30 miles an hour, like Miss Daisy. And there's this chap being done. He must have been doing 60, easily 60. So that would have been quite a severe penalty. But yes, never any cops around when you want them. And suddenly he went flying past us, this cop car. Oh, that made my day. So there we are. How do I cope? I don't know. I suppose you don't cope, do you? You kind of put up with it. You just have to be aware all the time, eyes in the back of your head, and just put up with it. Motorway driving is just, motorways should be pretty safe, but you get people swapping lanes far too close to each other. It's frightening. You know, I'm going along at perhaps 60. I normally keep to about 60 on a motorway. You get someone going past at 80 or 90 with someone right on their tail. You know, a matter of feet behind them. It's just, it really is asking for trouble. I just sort of motor along at 60 trying to mind my own business, and if there's a load of problem up ahead, just get into the left-hand lane and just go easy with the flow. What people don't realise is there is no fast lane. That's not a fast lane on the outside. That's the overtaking lane. But people don't. There's just the fast lane. They don't use it for overtaking. They sit in the fast lane. And if there's someone that's doing 70, which is the limit, and they want to get past, they blast and flash their lights right up behind them. I'm surprised there aren't more accidents. There we are. I've ranted enough. Happy days back when, because the roads then, back in the 50s, 60s, there was nowhere near the amount of traffic. The roads weren't as wide. They weren't designed for a lot of traffic. And they've not been changed, of course. All the roads haven't been widened to take the more amount of traffic. So you get these narrow roads with loads of traffic, and it's just all gridlocked. I remember the A24 up from the coast up to London. It wasn't much more than a country lane, which was fine. I don't remember any hold-ups. When I was young, I used to go up to London and back up the A24. There weren't any hold-ups. Everyone just motored along. It was fine. But as I say, there weren't the millions and millions of cars on the roads then. I wonder what will happen in the future. That would be interesting. Come back in, say, 50 years. I won't be here, sadly. Well, is that sadly? Perhaps it's a good thing. I won't be here in 50 years' time. But you never know, someone might be listening to this 50 years from now, and they might think, goodness me, well, they will think, how things have changed. I don't suppose there'll be any drivers on the roads, will there? It'll all be automatic, driverless cars or whatever they're called, the driverless things that go around. I don't know. Perhaps there won't be any roads. Perhaps it'll all be some sort of rail system. Don't know. It would be interesting to come back and have a look one day. There we are. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye-bye.